I'm joined today by Lindsay Burke. She's an education policy analyst with the Heritage Foundation, so thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So from just a week or two ago was when President Obama had to sign a bailout bill to try to help many states to try to keep teachers in their jobs. And then you see $578 million being spent on a new school in a state that is really struggling with money. As a policy analyst on education matters, what struck you about this decision?
Right. Well, California faces a severe budget crisis, and some teachers have certainly lost their jobs as a result. But the exorbitant amount of taxpayer money being spent on the school is just another example of the way funds are being inefficiently used. And quite frankly, it's an example of why federal bailouts are a bad idea. Last year, through the stimulus, the Department of Ed received $100 billion, which it then sent to states to backfill budget shortfalls and to prevent teacher layoffs. And just a month ago, a few short weeks ago, we saw Speaker Pelosi call the entire House back from their August recess in order to pass another $10 billion public education bailout. And the administration said that this was necessary in order to prevent catastrophic teacher layoffs. But I think the real catastrophe here is the fact that we are amassing just exorbitant amounts of debt because of this out-of-control spending.
We have a quote that I want to read to you from the California Board of Education member who slammed the new school, that building. He said that new buildings are nice, but when they're run by the same people who've given us a 50% dropout rate, they're a big waste of taxpayer money. Parents aren't fooled. In your research, do you see any benefit to students when they have a brand new beautiful building? Do they seem to learn better, or is this really come down to what kind of quality teachers do you have, and should they be held accountable?
Right. Well, I definitely agree with that statement. We see low-performing school districts throughout the country that have very expensive schools and very high per-pupil expenditures, but we know that that has no correlation with academic achievement. In fact, and when we look at just the exorbitant amounts of spending and that lack of correlation there, it really calls into question the necessity of more federal bailouts for states and more spending in general. We know that in LA, there is just a 50% on a basic level of reading for students. So only half of students even read at a basic level in LA, and spending $500 million on a new public facility, a public school, isn't likely to improve the reading proficiency of students there.
Let me ask you one last question before I let you go. Are you surprised that the teachers' unions haven't complained about this? Because don't you think they'd rather have the money, but they've been conspicuously silent?
Not at all. When you have an unlimited budget, which is essentially what states have now that the federal government has gotten into the game of bailing out state education budgets, you're going to see resources used inefficiently, and you're going to see school districts less responsive to local taxpayers.
All right, Lindsay, thanks so much for joining us today. I hope to see you again soon.
Thanks for having me.